Though I had been back in fallen London for just a short time, I began to grow more and more aware of why my father had taken his finest ship out to the great East. The Undersea, though I had seen it much as a child, is not to be trifled with. Before I had had to run from the great monsters of the deep, the lifebergs, the eels, the sharks, and I could only pick on the smallest of pirates. I grew tired of this. I had scraped together quite a bit of savings from my work in Visage, from the generosity of the curator in Venderbite, and so I pooled my savings and bought myself a new ship, the corvette. I named it Dawn's Dagger, for this would be my weapon to strike out against the ancient darkness and bring light to this world. Or perhaps it would be my own undoing. Either way, this ship was strong enough to hold my father's cannon, the Memento Mori. I fitted it to the front of my ship with pride and took off. Ironically, my first voyage was to Hunter's Keep. I could not keep away from the sisters. Their unusual nature grew on me. This time I spoke with Phoebe. She was a bit unpredictable at times, but she spoke to me of a butler, a pig, and a vicar. Apparently the pig earned some sort of inheritance, while the butler and the vicar ended up in bed together. It was an unusual thing, to say the least. I was more cheerful than I'd been in a very long time. Her sisters were a bit jealous, but I left Hunter's Keep feeling lighter than I had in ages. When I arrived in Venderbite on a short journey to Palmerston, I decided to follow tips that I'd gotten from the factor of Demio. He told me of a restaurant run by a very potent chef, the Bandaged Poissonniere, and I met the man. He sought the ancient flavors of the Zee, and was trying greatly to recreate the flavors long forgotten. He wondered if I might take him on. His price was not cheap, but I admit I admired the man's drive almost as much as I admired the man's cooking. So I allowed him to join. On our way to Whiter, on our way to Palmerston, I found myself in contact with a lifeberg. Though the mighty beast rammed itself against Dawn's dagger, our new hull took it quite well, and the Memento Mori blew a hole in the living ice as it cried out in agony. We looted the thing's corpse before it could drift apart, and found a strange bottle of souls. This would be a nice gift for a friend in Palmerston. I took only a short rest in Whiter. I could not stand the questions of the fools there. However, I did find another grill. While perhaps not as tasty as the Poissonniere's delicious flavors, I tried something familiar looking. Again, I found tyrant moth antenna. The delicious flavor! Ah, such great, amazing tastes are one of the reasons I always enjoy the Z's bounty. Again, I stop off at Codex. A mute sailor decided to join us this time. Though the others were a bit wary, anyone who's willing to work and who knows the Z is welcome on my ship. Our trip to Palmerston was relatively uneventful, in all honesty. I met with the Deviless of Palmerston, and gave her the souls. She almost broke into tears from those elegant topaz eyes, as she recalled her time in the Iron Republic, her homeland. She missed it greatly. She whispered a dark secret into my ear. The sound, the smell, it was almost like fire was being breathed into my very brain. And yet, I felt I learned something great. She asked that I'd come back in time, as she'd had some moments to think, and I told her that I would. I spent a lot of time digging in Palmerston, trying to unearth some hidden secrets. My father had left instructions on what to do in certain situations, on how to create ancient books and tomes in my seaside mansion. So, I followed that. The crew began to grow madder as we unearthed artifact after artifact. One man abandoned crew. I tried to find him, but there was nothing for it. He was gone. A bound shark, wrapped in the chains of the Z, and seeking out its next meal, tried to take us. The Memento Mori sunk it with no real effort. Though I was loath to put in at Gator's Morn, I had little choice. My crew was beginning to grow weary. Our terror was high. And, as it turns out, I was quite lucky. I found some very delicious information on the Admiralty and on the Kanate. I managed to aid some of the Kanate in their struggles. It was quite nice of them to give me a pewter horse piece, though no real value. You might say it was quite friendly of them. The Conate were dealing with the Chelenite. Though I've no love for either, I neither have hatred for them, so I picked the side who seemed the least barbaric, you might say. I can't afford to be choosy with my allies on the Z. I finally found another grill as well. Imagine my surprise to have more antenna. Tyrant moth antenna is quickly becoming my favorite treat, though I do not always get to choose when I have it. With my ship full of terrified men and the light growing weak, we limped our way to Demio. The factor's supplies and his tea lightened our spirits, but not before there was a mutiny on deck. A woman went raving mad. I tried to actually save her, but she died, taking 3 of my men with her. The Z giveth, the Z taketh. We put in at Mutton Island to try and rest ourselves, but on our way there, we saw the locals in a barbaric ritual. They picked a random person and seemed to throw them into the Z with no care at all, then go back to their tavern to have a nice beer and a pint and to laugh over the event. With my heart thoroughly darkening, I headed back to London so that I might rest, so that I might deliver on some dark secrets I'd found.